Haunts Gothic decor and the roots claim that this block once held an 1800s morgue, make atmosphere the first subject. Treat the morgue detail as a local venue history claim to verify, but understand the design strategy, darkness, old textures, theatrical names, and controlled lighting turn a cocktail room into a story. Philadelphia's Prohibition history gives the modern speakeasy idea a larger context. The city had thousands of illegal drinking places during the 1920s, and secrecy often mixed with corruption, neighborhood knowledge, and selective enforcement. A present-day bar can borrow that vocabulary without reproducing the original danger. The hidden room is now a form of hospitality and performance. Notice how the venue guides your expectations before a drink arrives. The name haunt suggests that the past is still in the room, but the real history is the labor of designers, bartenders, servers, and guests who maintain the illusion. Ask what makes a place feel old: materials, lighting, rumor, or behavior. From here, continue to Midnight and the Wicked, where jazz and 1920s glamour shift the mood from haunted to seductive. As you approach, keep the route moving. Ahead is Haunt, where the route moves into darker theatrical territory. Rooms like this prove that speakeasy culture is not only about history. It is also about fantasy. Shadow, suggestion, and a carefully staged mood can make nightlife feel immersive, as if the room itself is performing for you. Midnight and the Wicked uses its name to compress the fantasy of nightlife, late hours, jazz, glamour, and a little moral mischief. The route labels it a jazz room with 1920s inspiration, so listen for the connection between music and speakeasy culture. Jazz was not merely background sound in the 1920s. It was a modern cultural force associated with migration, dance, black creativity, and changing ideas about public behavior. A room that invokes that era is selling a mood built from rhythm, intimacy, and after-hours possibility. Keep the history precise. This is a contemporary venue inspired by the period, not a surviving Prohibition speakeasy. The theatrical setting can still teach something about how cities remember. Designers select which past to make glamorous and which contradictions to leave in shadow. Ask who performed, who was allowed in, and whose labor made nightlife possible. At midnight, the room's promise is not literal lawlessness. It is temporary escape from the ordinary schedule. That is the thread connecting the entire tour. A bar becomes memorable when entry feels like crossing into a different version of the city. Charlie Was a Sinner turns transgression into design. Its name, dramatic room, and burlesque night reference invite guests to play with the language of temptation while remaining inside a carefully managed hospitality business. That is a classic speakeasy move: suggest danger, then deliver polish. The historical connection is indirect. Burlesque, cabaret, and nightlife have long used costume, music, gender performance, and moral exaggeration to give audiences a temporary world outside ordinary respectability. Philadelphia's Prohibition era also depended on performance. Patrons had to know where to go, whom to trust, and how to behave when alcohol was officially restricted but widely available. A modern bar borrows the feeling of secrecy without the legal risks. Look at how the name shapes your reading of the room. A cocktail becomes part of a narrative about confession, indulgence, and permission. Ask what kind of transgression is safe to sell, and what kinds of real social risk remain outside the room. The best historical tours keep both ideas visible. Nightlife can be joyful and creative, while access and safety are never equally distributed. From here, continue to Andrehem, where the route replaces theatrical sin with Swedish domesticity and hidden design. Andrehem means another home, and the route's Swedish theme uses that idea literally. The bar's appeal comes from entering a room that feels domestic, layered, and slightly hidden behind furniture rather than from relying only on a secret password. Contemporary coverage described its maximalist townhouse atmosphere, with strong color, wallpaper, and a sense of stepping into someone else's carefully composed interior. That is a different kind of speakeasy design. It does not imitate a 1920s backroom exactly, it creates intimacy through unfamiliarity. Cocktails become a way to travel without leaving Center City, borrowing Scandinavian ingredients, design references, and hospitality cues. Be careful not to turn Sweden into a decorative shorthand. The useful question is how cultural references are translated for a Philadelphia audience. Who is being invited into the imagined home, and what makes the space feel welcoming rather than like a themed set? Notice the relationship between neighborhood and interior. Once the door closes, the bar can feel transportive, but it still depends on the block, staff, suppliers, and local customers outside. From here, continue to Hop Sing Laundromat, where access rules and reputation become the central part of the experience. Hop Sing Laundromat at 1029 Race Street is one of Philadelphia's best-known modern hidden bars. The unmarked entrance, formal dress expectations, password-like access, and famously selective reputation make the rules part of the product. Visit Philadelphia describes the bar as a speakeasy-inspired room, but it is not a surviving Prohibition establishment. That distinction matters because secrecy in the 1920s was tied to law-breaking, police raids, bribery, and organized distribution. Hop Sing turns secrecy into controlled exclusivity. The door asks a social question before the bar asks for a drink. Do you know how to enter this world? That can create anticipation, but it can also make hospitality feel like gatekeeping. Ask who gets to feel chosen and who gets turned away. The name also raises questions about how Asian imagery and Chinatown location are used in nightlife branding. A responsible reading notices design, history, and power together. Inside, the room's reputation may precede the actual experience, showing how rumor can be an architectural material. From here, continue to Franklin Mortgage and Investment, whose name openly borrows from a Prohibition-era bootlegging story. Franklin Mortgage and Investment takes its name from the largest alcohol ring in Philadelphia during Prohibition, according to the bar's own history. The modern bar first opened in 2009, later moved, and reopened inside the Franklin Hotel on Rittenhouse Square. Its unmarked door and cocktail program borrow the language of bootlegging while offering something very different: curated drinks, train service, and a legal business built around historical atmosphere. Philadelphia's Prohibition history was unusually large and corrupt. Contemporary historical accounts estimate thousands of speakeasies in the city, while police, politicians, suppliers, and neighborhood intermediaries negotiated the law in practice. That context makes the fake business name more than a joke. It points toward the financial networks behind illegal alcohol. Read the room as a story about expertise. A modern cocktail bar asks guests to trust ingredients, technique, timing, and the staff's judgment. The hidden entrance adds a threshold, but the real craft happens behind the bar. Compare the venue's polished control with the uncertainty of a historical speakeasy. The past involved raids, violence, and inconsistent enforcement. The present sells the feeling of risk under safe conditions. From here, continue to the Mask and Wig Club, where private membership, costume, performance, and Philadelphia's older club culture come into view. The Mask and Wig Club was founded by University of Pennsylvania students in 1889 as an all-male performance group. Its first production, Lurleen, opened that year, and architect Wilson Eyre later transformed the South Quint Street property into a clubhouse. The building's private rooms, stage, murals, costumes, and caricatures make it a bridge between collegiate performance and modern nightlife. This is not a speakeasy, but it shares the culture of selective entry, insider language, theatrical identity, and carefully managed social space. The history also demands context. The original membership and performances reflected a university and society that excluded women from participation, and the club's comedy often depended on gender performance by an all-male cast. Contemporary membership has changed, but the building still carries that layered past. Look at how architecture supports performance: a rehearsal room, a clubroom, an audience, a stage, and a threshold that separates members from passers-by. Speakeasy culture inherits this basic idea that a room becomes powerful when access and performance are organized together. From here, continue to the Randstead Room, the Roots classic hidden door cocktail stop. The Randstead Room at 2013 Randstead Street presents the classic modern speakeasy image: a nondescript entrance, a dark interior, intimate seating, and cocktails treated as craft. Its own description emphasizes house-made infusions and a hidden, moody setting. The Root calls this a 1920s alley bootlegger site, but that should be treated as atmosphere rather than verified evidence that the modern room occupies a historic bootlegging location. Philadelphia's real Prohibition bars were often ordinary storefronts, apartments, clubs, or back rooms whose secrecy depended on local knowledge. The modern version turns the hidden door into a deliberate stage. Arrival becomes part of the drink. Notice how scale affects behavior. A narrow room encourages close conversation, slower movement, and attention to the person serving you. That intimacy can feel luxurious, but it also depends on labor that remains mostly invisible: prep, cleaning, inventory, licensing, and the technical work behind each cocktail. Ask what the room is hiding and what it is revealing. It hides the bar from the street while revealing a contemporary desire for mystery. From here, continue to One Tippling Place, where craft and hospitality become less theatrical and more conversational. One Tippling Place represents the craft side of speakeasy-inspired nightlife. The Root associates it with bartenders recognized by the James Beard Foundation, but awards should be checked against current business records and dates because nightlife changes quickly. The word tippling is old-fashioned and playful, suggesting drinking without the hard edge of a clandestine club. That tone matters. Not every hidden or intimate bar needs to make guests feel tested. Hospitality can create privacy through warmth, knowledgeable service, and a room scaled for conversation. Look at the cocktail as a small engineered object. Balance, dilution, temperature, aroma, glassware, and timing all shape the final experience. A modern speakeasy often sells this technical fluency as part of the evening. Philadelphia's long tavern history provides the deeper background. Drinking spaces have always been places where information, business, politics, and social identity circulate. Prohibition did not erase that function, it pushed some of it into concealed rooms and illegal networks. Today, the concealment is usually aesthetic. Ask how a bar can feel exclusive without becoming hostile, and how expertise can educate rather than intimidate. From here, continue to the library bar, where bookshelves and a hidden passage turn cultivated taste into the final visual language of the tour. The library bar, located behind a bookcase in Bar Huga, closes the Root with a familiar speakeasy device, concealment disguised as architecture. A bookshelf suggests knowledge, discretion, and cultivated taste before a guest has ordered anything. The hidden entrance is a contemporary design feature, not proof of a Prohibition-era room. That distinction is worth repeating across this tour. Speakeasies were illegal alcohol outlets operating under the pressure of raids, corruption, and uneven enforcement. Modern hidden bars borrow the emotional experience, discovery, privacy, and chosen access, while operating as licensed businesses. The library theme also flatters the guest. It says that entering this room means joining a world of conversation and discernment. Ask whether the feeling comes from actual quiet, from books as props, from the threshold, or from the service that follows. The Root has moved through haunted decor, jazz glamour, burlesque, Nordic design, strict door policy, Prohibition branding, collegiate performance, hidden alleys, and cocktail craft. Together, these rooms show that speakeasy culture is less a single historical type than a design language. It uses secrecy, storytelling, intimacy, and controlled access to make an ordinary night feel exceptional. End by separating the history from the fantasy. Philadelphia really did have an enormous and troubled Prohibition economy. The contemporary venues transformed that past into atmosphere, and visitors should enjoy the craft without mistaking the theatrical version for the historical record.